If you'd like to talk about your own Bigfoot encounter, or if you're looking for help from a Bigfoot investigator in your area, email me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. No Sasquatch were harmed in the recording of this podcast. I'm joined by Blake. Blake's story was featured on the television series These Woods Are Haunted, but after talking to him, there seems to be a lot more than just Bigfoot. When did all this get started for you?
It was about 6 years ago. My parents, they bought this new house or whatever. And I lived with them for a while. Nothing really showed up for a while, and it just suddenly one day, or well, I guess I should say one night rather, I started hearing these things out in the woods, and it didn't really sound like anything I'd ever heard before. I never really got too much into Bigfoot or anything like that before.
Right.
So it was not anything that I was familiar with, but during that night that it first happened or whatever, they were pretty aggressive at first, I guess I wouldn't say it's aggressive so much as like they were trying to attack me, but they were just trying to make themselves known.
Making lots of noise and stuff.
Yeah. They were definitely making a lot of noise. Breaking trees, limbs, just making an uproar. They're making a lot of noise. And it was from then on out, pretty much after that, anytime I would go outside or if I would be out in the yard, I would be almost singled out. If anybody else were to go outside, they wouldn't have that problem. But I did. I would always have that problem.
Huh. Now, was it pretty consistent after it got started? Was it like every time you went outside or?
Yeah, it was very consistent after that. It would almost be a continuous thing. And even to this day, it would still be like that.
Wow. So the stuff's still going on there?
Yes. Although I don't live with them now, but when I do go over there, it's just like that. Although they're not like they were, when that first started, and I have some theories, I guess, about it. I think that it's like a network of them that travel through that area because it's really close to a river, and I think that they would travel from the river past my parents' house and go to horse stables that are nearby. I think to eat horse feed. And I think that was just groups of them that would be going through at different times. And different times, there'd be different groups of them. And maybe it was just the younger ones, maybe. I don't know. But I did see some that were very large out there. So, it wasn't just like younger ones. But
now that you've, moved out and everything, do your parents ever experience anything? Whenever you're not over there?
Yes. Both of them, my mom and my dad, both have said that, they've seen and heard stuff. My dad, when he goes outside a lot and works in the yard or whatever, he'll see and hear a lot of stuff. They're very good at self-awareness, I guess. You're not going to get the drop on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But they both have told me since I moved out that that they'll hear, a lot of stuff out there tearing up the trees and even during the daytime, whenever we go out there and look around and see whenever we'd hear a lot of noise the night before, we'd go out there and look and we'd see trees and stuff that'd be bent over and broke and just messed up a lot of the trees out there, and we never would tear them down. Like, they built like these structures out there where they'd arch the trees over and lock them into the ground and stuff. They're the same way they were, you know.
Now, how did you end up being on the television show? How did that come about?
They reached out to me. I guess they had seen some of my YouTube videos, and they reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be on. And I went and done the TV show in Atlanta. They had seen a bunch of the videos that I'd put on YouTube.
Yeah, the videos that I saw on the television show are pretty impressive. I mean, of course, you know, they're not proving anything, you know, to skeptics or anything like that, but a lot of people talk about them avoiding cameras and not being able to capture them on cameras, but you actually had a little bit of success.
And actually, since doing the TV show thing that I had done, I've actually had a little bit more stuff that I've gotten on camera, and involving, you know, their faces and stuff. But I will say that they are there's some intelligence there to them and cameras. Now, I'm not exactly sure how they know that they're being recorded or something, but I've noticed that it would appear like I guess I would almost describe it as like a mirage, you know, like it'll have that kind of effect on what you're viewing it through. They'll almost seem to disappear out of the video or something, and instead it'll just look like a mirage is in place instead. But
kind of like whenever you see like gas fumes and stuff like that at like a gas pump or whatever.
Yeah, just and it'll actually be more pronounced than that. It's like some kind of a effect that I've noticed. But then there's been other times where I've just been able to see, you know, crystal clear what, you know, faces, giant faces and stuff like that. Now I had the BFRO come out before, and actually they came out 3 different times. And there's one video where they always have these cats that would pile around with them, these feral cats. And the video that I had showed one like reach out of the woods and grab a hold of this cat. And I thought that the cat was, you know, it was a goner, but it let the cat back down. It put the cat back down after that. But we did some measurements looking around and seeing, you know, from the point of view of the video, we were standing out there and doing measurements, and we figured that the arm had to be at least 6 feet long.
Wow.
From arm, you know, from the upper part of the body to the hand itself. So something like that would have to have a pretty big body and head too. So some of the things that I've seen out there that would be associated with an arm that big. I'd also see like giant faces and stuff like that. I don't know where something that big would hide.
Have you seen one, like while you've been out there in the woods, have you gotten a good look at one?
Yeah, at least a couple times, because after that, I didn't really go back out there. It scared me, but.
What did it look like, if you don't mind describing it?
Well, it was really dark, you know, dark colored, and almost looked like it was artificially colored. But all I could see was these dark beady eyes, big eyes. There wasn't any color to them. It was just black. There wasn't no white to the eye or nothing. It was just solid black. And they don't blink. It wasn't blinking at me. It was just like staring without blinking. And that's all I could really see. And I couldn't really tell where the body began and where, you know, it didn't look like it had any border to it. It was just like this big mass, and I was out there in the woods when it had got dark. It, like I say, it looked artificially colored. Like it looked like it was trying to be as black as possible so it could hide, in darkness. But I couldn't really see. As far as like the body goes,
Mm-hmm.
it looked like it had like really long arms and short legs, but I couldn't really see anything like in detail.
And this was whenever you were out there by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds super creepy, man.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was at least 20 feet away from me when I seen it. And that's when I started, realizing that I don't want to be out there whenever it would get dark. I want to make sure that I was always inside or whatever. And if I carry flashlights, I noticed that I'd get a lot of response from them. If I'd carry a light or if I had a gun with me or something, they didn't seem to like that too much.
Really?
Yeah, they were really they were very observant to what I was doing and what I have with me at the time and stuff.
I noticed on the television series. Now I know it, of course it was edited and, produced and everything like that. And you couldn't go into like everything and get it all included. But it seemed like a lot of the times they would come to the edge of the yard, but did they ever actually come out into the yard?
Not that I know of. Because we had a security light, and they would never cross that threshold into the light.
Mm-hmm.
And unless the lights went out, there has been a few times where, under mysterious circumstances, like the light would be out, and it would just be complete darkness outside.
Like it would just quit working.
Yeah, it would just quit working sometimes, and that would just be really awkward, or it would be, unusual.
Mm-hmm.
But when it would do that, like I'd stay inside. I wouldn't go outside at all after that. And then they'd make these meowing sounds, sound like a little baby cooing, whistles. They sound like owls, and it wouldn't sound like, you could tell the difference between like a natural animal sound and then these things that would sound like really exaggerated. And they sound like dogs, try to sound like dogs barking. But and then other times it would sound like monkeys.
Do you have any theories why they're making all those different vocalizations? Do you think they're trying to like lure you out there or anything?
I do think that I thought that at first, but then the more or less I started, seeing what was going on, I don't think they really want to interact with people too much. I think that they get enjoyment out of messing with some people. Mm-hmm. And I think that they kind of get going in like they get, what's the word? They get all in an uproar, kind of like how you would see on TV. Like, I'm not saying they're like monkeys, but how you'll see like a group of chimps or something get all in an uproar and they start going crazy,
all worked up and in a frenzy and stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt like they were doing. And only in these cases, when they go into a frenzy, like stuff gets tore up. But they are intelligent. In my experience with them, they're intelligent. Now, I don't know. Some people, you might say that they could be alien or something, and that's a topic for something else. Because I've witnessed some weird stuff like that too in the time dealing with that out there, seeing things flying around and stuff.
Yeah, on one of the videos, you kind of captured what looks like an orb of some kind.
There were and now there still is quite a bit of orb activity out there, and some of them were big, some of them were small, and I got to where I started noticing like a feeling that I would have, and it's almost like, some people say like you'll experience like a dread or something like that.
Yeah.
that's kind of like how I would start feeling, and I would notice that those things would show up. I would be able to see them in infrared, but not with my naked eye, you know. But one night I decided to put the camera in my room, and I started seeing it floating above my bed, you know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there was two different times, but there was one floating above my bed when I was at work, you know, and before I got home I noticed it was just sitting there floating. And that was pretty creepy. It was like it was about the size of a basketball. That was the only time that I ever noticed that. That was the only time I took the camera back out.
Do you think the orbs are connected to the Bigfoot?
I do. I think there's something, and I don't know if it's technology or part of me feels like it's not, like it's something in nature that's associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
But there is definitely a connection there between them. And I still see, like, I still have cameras, you know, that I can view from there, and, you know, where I'm at now, and just, you know, watch. And I'll still see those orbs all the time.
I know you said that the Bigfoot stuff kind of just started all of a sudden, but did you ever notice any other weird stuff at the location before then?
No, not really. No, but like I say, it could have happened, or it could have been starting out. I didn't notice it, but the night that it first happened, it was the summer of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
There had just been some kind of a tropical storm, I believe, come through the area, and it knocked all the power out for like a few days, I think, and we didn't have power for I think 2 or 3 nights. But I was outside charging my phone in the truck, and that's when I guess, like, I was singled out. But our neighbors said that their dogs were barking and going crazy, and our dogs were going crazy. That that they even had got their gun out and stuff. This was like 3 a.m. in the morning, and that's when I was outside charging my phone, and it sounded like some kind of a frog, or it sounded like a little squeak toy or something, and I kept hearing it. And that's the very first time that I recall something being out there, because I didn't have a flashlight with me or nothing, but I was using the exterior lights on my truck to try to see out beyond where I was at, but I couldn't, and I kept hearing something out there. You know, it sounded like it was big, but from then on out, like, there was always this ominous feeling, like there was something out there watching me. And then it was right after that I got the first video that I did, where you could see the one in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
That was the smallest one that I ever really seen, and I think that was about the only one I ever seen out in the daytime, and it just didn't care if I seen it or not. You know, normally they try to hide themselves, but this one, I had a feeling like it was wanting me to see it.
You talked about you think that they move through that area as they follow the river or whatever. Is there a certain, like, have you noticed any patterns, like a certain time that they're there, or that they leave, or anything?
Yeah, I believe that the area along the highway, it's a perfect spot for an animal to cross, you know, to be less, you know, to be in cover.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think that during right as the sun's going down, or just past when the sun goes down, that's whenever they'll start crossing the highway, and they'll cross over the woods near where my parents stay at, and there's a horse stable about a mile beyond that, and it's deep. It's real thick woods. I think that they supplement their diet with the horse feed, and come up from the river, and maybe especially in during times of the year where there's no, like, crops in the fields and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that because I have went out there way out in the woods, and I asked the people that own the property if I could go back there whenever I did, and I found a giant nest it looked like a giant nest, like something had been like wallering it out.
Yeah.
And I knew that it had to be like that because there weren't any like plants growing inside of the circle. Like normally you'd see at least some kind of vegetation, but there wasn't anything growing inside of it. And I found a bunch of hair, which I got the hair. I collected a bunch of real long black stringy hair. It looks like it come off of a horse, but I ain't never seen a horse, look like that. It's a nasty looking horse, but
yeah.
And some of the hair was like at least 10 feet off the ground. And it looks to me like either they were going bald or they were trying to leave like a scent mark, or a scent trail along the way.
Huh.
But I collected all that hair. I hadn't went back out there in a little while, but there was never any hair that I would have been, I'm able to see stuff like that pretty quickly. And I had never seen that before until like the last couple of years that they started doing that. Because normally they would, whatever would be out there was never leaving any evidence of its inhabitation, or back there.
Yeah. Now, do you hunt?
Yeah.
So do you see any like deer sign or other animal sign back in those woods or anything?
No, not really. There used to be deer, but I'm assuming that these things kind of ruin that for them, to run them off. But and late in the afternoons, or right when it, about like this time now, it's getting dark right about now here, and that's about the time where all the animals are just gone. Like you won't hear anything out there.
Huh.
And then you'll start. If I were to look at my cameras now, I'll start noticing these long shadows showing up in the cameras out there in the woods, and it's like creeping in, whatever. And that's almost like that's what usually precludes them whenever they're coming in. It's like these massive shadows will start showing up, and then you won't hear any natural animal life. You'll just hear these strange like mimics of animals like owls and stuff.
You talked about the cats, the feral cats, palling around with them. So, I mean, these cats just follow them around out there. They don't mess with the cats. I know you've got the one video of one reaching out and grabbing that cat. I mean, you can see the cat, way off the ground. It's pretty crazy, but they don't mess with the cats really. Or are they friends? What do you think that's about?
I think that's their pets. That's just, my take on it, but they have these certain cats, and now feral cats, like we always try to catch them and release them somewhere else, because if we were to take them to the pound, they're going to euthanize them. So
right.
I felt like they would stand a better chance somewhere else. But the weird thing about these cats, and I've never noticed it anywhere else, is they will not go in a cat trap. Absolutely will not go into it. And I started noticing that, and it was just the cats that would follow them. It almost seems like they were trained or instructed in some way not to go in the trap.
Huh. Typically, you bait a cat trap, with any kind of food, you're going to catch a cat.
Yeah, and these right here, the food wouldn't even tempt them to go in there.
Huh.
And that was strange. But then, like, I'd start noticing that I mess with these things a lot, like using the microphone on the cameras, like making certain little sounds and get them really mad, just whistling or something. And then I noticed that if I would make a noise or something, and instead of them coming to investigate it, suddenly a cat would come and investigate the sound.
Really?
And then go right back to where they were supposed to be at.
Wow. That's interesting.
And I know that they were, certain parts, because there would be a massive shadow in the woods where there's not supposed to be one. And I know that that's where that they were most likely at. And they huddle up together in these parts in the woods, and it'll look like a massive black spot. and you won't be able to, occasionally you'll see eyes, but you won't be able to make out any body shape or anything like that. But I think they're up in the trees most of the time, or for the majority of the time, they stay up in the trees.
Have you caught one up in a tree?
No, but I have seen some of the telltale signs that they've left behind, like from going up into the trees and shimmying up the trees, because there's certain pine trees out at my mom and dad's, like, where there's not a single limb. If you look up, it looks like something shimmied up the trees, like repeatedly. And I think that they'll climb up the trees and just hang out up there and watch. Because I think that if I'm putting myself in their position, if I'm trying to hide from a human, I would almost think that the human's going to expect me to be on the ground, so I'm just going to be up in the air and watch him while he looks for me on the ground.
Right. And
I feel like that's what. And I've even wondered sometimes if maybe that was like a nursery area, like while the adults are out doing stuff like getting food or whatever, that the younger ones are just kind of hanging out waiting for them to get done. Because it didn't make no sense that they're staying still for the majority of the time that they would need to get their food.
What has the BFRO said about all this? What are some of the things that they've found whenever they've come out there?
The first time they came, their mosquitoes were insane. So they went out by themselves in the woods, and they watched a big orb fly around them for, I think, half the night. But they got approached by something they said was real big, but they weren't able to get it on video. And then the second time, I actually went out with them that night, and we didn't see anything, but we heard stuff walking through the woods. And their conclusion was that there's a moderately sized group of them out there that are living out in the woods out there, but we weren't able to actually get it on video.
Right.
But I thought one thing that was really neat was that the orb, and whereas I've never seen them with the naked eye. Like they said, they were able to watch it flying through the trees with the naked eye, and I had never seen that. So that was neat.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for it to be documented by the BFRO, a group like that. What do your parents think about all this stuff?
Well, at first they thought I was smoking something, or
yeah,
that I was crazy about it. But it didn't take long for them to start noticing the woods were absolutely like just getting destroyed inside, like hollowed out, and the stuff the limbs were being snapped in half that shouldn't be snapped in half. My mom, she actually was she accepted it more before my dad did, but now they both believe in it now, although they don't really know what to think about it.
Yeah. What's the scariest thing that's happened to you out there?
Well, there was one night when I had to go behind the barn to get something. I can't remember what it was now, but I just remember hearing like the back of the barn faces the woods, like right there where they normally are. And I just know that I was trying not to look, I was just trying to get what I had to get. And as soon as I went back there to get it, I heard something like crunch behind me. And I knew that as soon as I turned around, like I was going to be face to face with something. But as soon as I turned around, like I tried my best not to look at it. And I know there was something standing there, but I didn't look at it. Like I turned, and you know how you'll get that adrenaline when you start to try to run from something like that.
Yeah.
And that was about like the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. But I'm still wondering now what would have happened if I had a look.
Yeah.
Would it I don't think that they would have attacked me, but
you have to kind of wonder why they get that close to you like that.
I think, like I say, I think that they like to mess with people. And then like with me, they probably knew at some point or another that I was not a threat to them. When I would refuse to like I say, point flashlights at them or a gun or something like that. I think that they kind of got bored with me and stopped. which they'll still, like when I go over there now and visit, I'll notice that the energy out there just goes from like 0 to 60 out there. It's like they're like happy I'm back or something.
Huh.
I get that feeling that because as much as they've tried to pick with me and stuff, like I've done the same with them too. I would leave food and stuff like that out there, and they wouldn't touch any of it.
Just not having it.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, I've read stuff before that they don't like citrus fruits, and we have an orange tree out there, and that's what I was trying to leave them, is oranges, and I guess that would make sense.
Yeah.
That they don't. But pears and stuff like that, I've heard people say that they like pears, but who don't like pears, I guess. But I never tried leaving that.
Have you ever noticed them taking anything from the property, food or otherwise?
No, I haven't. But like I say, I don't think that I've never known them to actually cross into the yard. If they did, they done it whenever the light was out.
Yeah. You mentioned them not liking it whenever you go out there with something in your hands, like a gun or a flashlight. How's the behavior different? What do they do exactly whenever you're out there like that?
Well, as soon as I'm, like I say, if I walk out there and shine a light and then go back inside, I'll be able to hear the woods being like thrashed through from inside the house, tearing the limbs and stuff out of the trees, even taking some of the treetops and just snapping them off, and you can hear them like hitting the ground out there. And they've destroyed them woods out there for a while. I think for at least a good 2 or 3 years, they just did nothing but tear the trees and the woods up to the point to where we were just about to, burn it all down and start over again. But I talked my dad into leaving it like it was because I thought it was neat. It almost looks like some kind of really big structure, like they built with the limbs and trees and stuff all like intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looks like something came down from above and just squashed the trees and into the ground. But
you said that you've seen like some, I don't know, UFO type stuff out there.
Some of the things that I noticed, it would be like giant orbs, just weird stuff like that. But then some of the orbs got to be very large, like the size of a small house or something like that. I'd see on video camera and stuff. I hadn't really ever interacted with it like, firsthand, but I would see it on the camera and stuff. And I noticed that it would kind of mirror the time and stuff that I would see, those things out in the woods. And there was times where I wasn't even sure. I kept questioning myself as to what I was dealing with. Was I dealing with an alien, or was I dealing with a Bigfoot? I wouldn't be able to tell, for sure which one I was dealing with, because, that I guess because they were so closely related to each other, and the way they would happen and stuff like that.
Did you ever have any like paranormal experiences inside the house, like any haunting type stuff?
Yeah, well, kinda. I think that's when I kind of put that camera inside, like, because I would sleepwalk. Mm-hmm. And I used to sleepwalk bad when I was little, and I'd walk right outside, and I'd wake up out next to the woods or in the yard and stuff, and I'd freak out because, I'd wake up out in the dark. But
yeah,
I started back sleepwalking about 4 years ago, and this is like in the middle of all that stuff going on out there, and I was wondering if I was actually sleepwalking out into the woods again, because that would really be crazy to walk out there and sleepwalk out there and be in the middle of a bunch of Bigfoot.
Yeah, do not want to wake up in that situation.
No, I didn't. So I put the camera in there to try to send an alarm or whatever to wake me up. And I would talk in my sleep a lot, but I don't know how the door was getting unlocked, because I have a patio door there, and the door would just be unlocked suddenly. But I would watch the camera, and I never got up during the night, so I don't know how the doors were getting unlocked. And the house we lived at before that house, it would also happen that way too. Like the doors would just be unlocked and opened. And my parents were always confused, like what was going on. They called it a ghost, but the kind of deadbolts that have the inside, you have the thumb latch, but on the outside, you have to unlock it with a key.
Yeah.
They would have that locked, and we'd be gone, and we'd come back home, and it would be unlocked, and the door would just be opened a little bit.
Just kind of cracked open.
Yeah, and it would just be like that, and you had to have a key, or you'd have to be inside the house to unlock it. But
right.
So they would always just say it was a ghost or whatever, and well, the same thing started happening at the house they're at now, but it was happening to me, and I don't know if it wasn't me unlocking it, because like I knew it wasn't me doing it because the video camera and stuff, but I don't know what was up with that.
You mentioned that other than the hairs that you found, otherwise there was really no indications that they were in the area. So you never found any tracks or anything?
No, the tracks is the really hardest thing for me to find. And that's what I was really looking for. I didn't even expect to find hair. And I also found fecal matter out there in that giant nest that I found. And and I knew that it was something I had never seen before, because the poop was like from something that was eating grains, like horse grains. And that's where I started wondering if that's what they were eating, because it was a pretty large pile. And I know that it wasn't a horse out there, but yet there was horse feed in it. And I couldn't think of anything else that would be eating horse feed except for horses, or deer. And it wasn't deer that left that behind. It was something else. But the hair and stuff it almost looked like, they were using their hair in a way to help build their nest, because the hair and stuff, I didn't notice it at first, but it was over the top of the nest, like with like a canopy, and pine needles and stuff were getting caught in it over time and just adding to the cover more over time. And I still got the hair, I kept the hair.
Did you give any to the BFRO or?
No, but the Discovery Channel tried to get me to give them some, and I didn't do it.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like they were gonna like try to shelve it or something. I don't know. It was just me being
didn't trust them.
Precautionary. Yeah, I didn't trust them, because they wanted to. There was a lot of stuff that I talked to them about that they were interested in, whether it was scary, or something. What but they didn't. They could have. To me, they were just interested in selling a story.
Right.
They don't really care about the truth of it, which they were real nice people. They were really nice people, especially during the pandemic. That's whenever I had to go do the video and stuff for them. But they were really interested in the hair, but I just didn't, their motives just kind of struck me awful in a ways. So I didn't want to.
Just had a bad feeling about it.
Yeah. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to find any more hair, which I did. I found a lot more, but yeah. I didn't know that at that time. I didn't want to risk sending it to somebody that was going to try to say that it was from a bear or something like that.
Right. Do you have any intentions with the hair? What do you plan on doing with it?
I don't know. I would like to do something with it, because it definitely, me and my dad will sit there and argue. He's like, oh, that's just, he'll say, oh, that's just, a vine. I'm like, well, I discovered a new species of vine because I ain't never seen. So either way, it's a win.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely hair, because it has follicles on the ends of it. So it's got DNA. I definitely would like to know what it is. That's for sure. And I was very, very meticulous about how I handled it. Like I wore gloves, and I made sure not to handle it, and I put it in a paper envelope so that it would, I could like save the DNA of it without contaminating it.
Right. And
I made a video of how I was actually doing that, and that whole process, because I was just trying to think about, or somebody was trying to debunk me or whatever, what would they try to use? So I was trying to do it in a way that I would have something to to show that, hey, I was trying my best to be.
Yeah, that's smart. I give that advice to a lot of people. It's good to, document everything you do and try to think everything out before you do it to make sure you do it the right way.
There is another thing too that I just thought about. There's a little creek that runs beside their house, and it starts way back out in the woods, and it runs right through the heart of where I found that hair and all that at. But during like rainier months like we've had recently, that creek will be full of water, but it won't last for long, and it'll drain back out again. Well, when I was back there getting the hair samples or whatever, and I noticed that there was something damming up the water, and I looked, and there was two different like barriers of really tightly packed pine needles that were like, I don't even know if I could create the level of intricate like weaving that they did in placing these wads of pine needles into making it into a dam to dam the water up. But it had perfect sealing effect on that water to keep the water where they could, I guess, use it. But I took pictures of them and I had to find them. But I had a friend with me out there because I didn't want to be by myself. Even they were just like, what in the world did this? Because it was obviously something made it, but nobody goes back there.
I've never heard of that before. It was just all pine needles just kind of woven together.
Well, if you were to get like all of them laying the same shape, direction, mm-hmm. but a handful of them, twist them into a wad and stick them in like interlocking like sections, and then have mud on it, and then do it again, and then they were also using like limbs in between that. It was just multiple layers of that over and over and over. Where they had used that to block the water. And when I looked at that, like I could tell immediately that these things were not stupid. They were aware, of their surroundings, or they were able to think about the future. You know what I mean? Like that's what I've seen. And they were, and not just that, but I started noticing where the nest was, they were taking, there's a lot of, bamboo. Mm-hmm. out there, and I started noticing that the area where the nest was, they were taking bamboo shoots and planting them around the nest, and to me that's what humans had to learn first before we became a civilization, is cultivation. And that's kind of what they did in a way. They were using the bamboo because it'll grow up so thick, but they were planting it around that nest area. But when the BFRO came, we actually camped out in the middle of their nest. I do remember that. I had a guy named Ben. He came, and it was raining that night, but we camped right in the middle of their nest. And I was worried about that, because I didn't know what was going to happen, because what it looked like was like all the trees were kind of arched over each other. And in the middle of this massive clearing where like many of them could have laid at is just nothing but pine straw. Not a single like weed or anything. It's like they meticulously pick out all of the debris and stuff. And then all around the outside of it is like bamboo that just covers it from, you can't even see inside of it.
Just planted around the perimeter of the bed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like a really, really big area, like where a whole group of them could have laid down at night or in the daytime and slept.
Was the bamboo like really tall? You say it was planted. How do you know it was planted and wasn't just growing there?
Well, because the area that it normally grows is further up from that. Mm-hmm. And we've never seen it there. But then suddenly, when we were in the nest area, like there was the direction that it was growing was in a perfect ring around the nest area, but then it's completely offset from where the bamboo actually grows at.
Wow.
It actually looked like they just plucked up some of the shoots and took them over there and planted them in a ring around the nest. And bamboo it would have definitely grown completely through that nest area if it was left unimpeded, but yet it was hollowed out.
Yeah,
in a ring. Yeah.
In the South, we got cane thickets and bamboo thickets. They tend to grow in thickets, not rings around clearings.
And it was in a very narrow ring around a hollowed out area, and it looked so weird to me.
Why do you think they do that? Just to like conceal the nest, or
I think so,
protection from the elements, or
probably both. Now, from the looks of their hair, these things are nasty looking. Like that hair that I found, and I looked at as to why it'll have some bands that'll be thick, and then some will be thin, and then back thick, like how a horse mane will look.
Mm-hmm. And
I looked into that, and it said that sporadic eating habits and diet and stuff causes that, poor diet.
Yeah.
So where I guess when they're eating good, their hair will be thicker than, if they're not eating, which that makes sense,
Yeah, it does.
That was a very telling. Normally I wouldn't have went back there because I'd be afraid that I'd probably be on the Channel 6 News or something if I did, but
yeah.
I was glad that I did go back there because I learned a lot from them. And the night after that Ben and we were out there, they destroyed those woods. I know that they were mad because of where we were at, because they ran out of their area because of us, which we would have, like I said earlier, we would have never got the drop on them because they're just that self-aware of what's going on. But I think also because they got some posted up that'll call out, if there's a human in the area or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I tried trail cameras before and it never could get anything on them.
It just didn't work.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
And then like the cameras you have now are more of like a CCTV type camera that's just running all the time.
Well, I keep the infrared turned off on it, and I keep it high up in the air.
Yeah.
And then when they get close to where I want them at, I'll flip it on real quick.
Oh, okay.
But I've had more luck without the infrared than I did with it, because for some reason, and this is something I've always noticed, is they show up with a red tinge anywhere without. If you're looking at it without infrared on, it'll show up as like a really bright red tinge. And I don't know if that's something their hair does, the effect it has, but that's usually how I'm able to find out where they are, is because amongst the darkness that's there also, there's like this reddish color that's there too. And it could be, their hair has some red to it, but it's really, really spooky looking how red it is.
A lot of people have talked about their hair being weird, how light reflects with it and everything, and just having almost a kind of a supernatural effect to it.
It almost looks like it takes light and just bends it around it, like. Because I've noticed that there'll be like this black empty void, but there'll be like this band of light right next to it, and almost looks like that light's bending around it, but then whenever and I've seen eye shine maybe once or twice, but either they don't have it or they're able to look away, and I've never noticed the smell. That's what most people say, but
yeah.
And when I did a really neat thing with the hair that I got, some of the hair I let one of my dogs smell it, and the dog didn't seem to mind it, but when I let my cat smell it, the cat didn't like it.
Huh. I was going to ask you how, if you had dogs out there and how they reacted to these things.
Well, the dog, they have an inside dog. She's a little Yorkie. Heaven forbid if she ever got out there, they'd probably have a snack with her. But no, we have a cat. They have a cat there, but I've noticed on video cameras and stuff watching her, I tell her she's a sellout all the time, but I'll see her walking back there towards the woods at night, and I always pick mom and dad. So I'm like, yeah, y'all got a sellout of a cat who goes back there two-timing us with Bigfoot.
Fraternizing with the enemy.
Yeah. But, that is something weird about the cats though. And there was one time where we caught a cat that was out there, and my dad was like, haul it off. He said, don't, and make sure you cross the river so it won't come back here. And if it's feral, and it was feral, like it was trying to eat me up and stuff in the trap. So, but I hauled it several miles away and across a river and stuff. And the next morning, the cat was back at the house.
Wow.
So I don't know what was up with that. Like, it freaked me out. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I've heard those kind of stories about dogs, but never a cat.
Yeah, and definitely not in that time. I mean, it was only a few hours, and that cat would have had to have been on the move.
Yeah.
And I was gone. I went over 10 miles at least, because Dad was like, take it over a river, because they don't like. He said, I don't know if he ever wondered if they would cross the bridge, but he said they won't cross the water.
Yeah.
But that one must have hopped in a taxi or something, because it got back.
Got an
the
Uber
next morning. Yeah, it caught it up, but it was really weird, and it was one of the cats that I would see frequent with them the most, or in that area where they would be at.
Have you ever heard them talking or anything? Anything that sounded like a language?
Mainly just noise, and there could be something intelligible to it, but I haven't been able to hear it.
Have you heard any wood knocks or anything?
Yeah, there's been a lot of that out there, and I knocked back a few times and got responses, and every time it would hit it would hit. It would be like I would knock, and then it would knock. Then there would be like a real short pause, and then I'd knock again, and every time it would knock again, it would be closer and closer and closer till it was like 20 feet away. And I had some friends that were out there with me, and they were like freaking out. They were like, "No, that man, stop, just stop, stop, don't do it, don't hit it no more." Whatever it was just getting closer and closer, and we were out in the woods. I had built this little campground area out there, right in the dead center of the trees that they had made into arches and stuff. I built like a little campground right there in the middle of it because it looks cool. But once you're out there, you can't see how to get back unless you have like a flashlight, and they didn't have a flashlight, and they were starting to get freaked out by it, and they were wanting me to stop. But whatever it was did get real close to us, but you couldn't hear it. I don't know how something that big can be so, quiet.
Yeah.
But it can walk through leaves and stuff and won't even make a sound. But I think that it's because they're able to swing like orangutans through the trees and stuff. But I would occasionally hear the rattling of the limbs and the trees and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like something was moving through the trees, and it was able to clink them between, as it was moving.
Yeah.
So they weren't completely quiet, but I think it was because humans we for some reason think that they should be on the ground moving too, like us, but instead I think they're just up in trees moving around.
Have you found anything that, if you do, is like guaranteed to get a reaction out of them if they're around? Is there something that works better than something else?
I would say to try to, what's worked for me is to make fun of them by trying to make the same sounds they do, but in like a goofier way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this sounds weird, but like to turn my back to them and play with my hair. They don't like that.
Huh.
And I don't know why, but that really gets them going for some reason. Or if I sit there, I had a beard for a while too. Like when I had my beard, and then the next day when I shaved it, I noticed that was something to do with hair which I guess that makes sense. When your whole body's covered in hair, then you should have like a culture or something that's kind of more involved in hair. But
yeah, you think they have some sort of reverence or something for hair? Yeah,
I think so.
That's interesting.
But when I would sit there and mess with my hair and stuff, I would notice that it would get a lot more of attention, and I spent a lot of time, just trying to find ways, because I was hell-bent and determined to get them on camera. And even though one thing I will notice about the things around my mom and dad's is they got incredibly big heads, like really big heads. It almost looks like cartoonish in a way, like how they look.
Huh.
And I've never actually I've seen their head, their faces, and I got videos of it, but I've never seen the full head and body and everything like that, except that one that I seen in the daytime. But it looks completely different from what I would see. It's almost like I'm dealing with two different things instead of it just being one thing. Like it seems like there's the Bigfoot kind, and then there's this cartoonish monster looking thing. And that sounds weird, but it just looks like there's a giant helmet is what it looks like with eyes. It's like completely smooth, no hair on the head. And then there's some that have hair completely covering them. So I don't know. And I got more videos of the things that look, they're wearing a helmet than I do of anything else. Which that could be the whole thing. Like, that's what makes me confused about whether it's, an alien or if it's something else. I think that maybe it's two different things, that I'm seeing out there. I tried to tell my mom, I'm like, well, maybe one of them's the muscle and the other one's the brains. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah,
the Bigfoot's the muscle, and then, but there'll be the sound of like machinery out there. It'll sound like there's like some kind of a big like machine out there whirling in the woods, but there's nothing that I can see out there. And I can't really hear it with my own ears, but if I was listening through my camera, I'll hear it. It'll sound like real big machinery whirling around out there, just all night long, whirling and digging. It just sounds really, really weird. It makes me wonder, like, what that noise is, but it's definitely machinery, or it sounds like it is. But
now, have you talked to anybody that's confirmed that they've seen something or anything else around that area?
the neighbors, they're an old couple. They were like, well, we've lived here for 40 years and we've never seen anything. And I'm like, y'all just told me that there was something, out there at 3 a.m. Y'all got the guns out. But yeah, they have to hear the noises, the sounds and stuff going on. It sounds like monkeys are in town, like just hopping around through the trees and stuff out there. But I don't know. They say one thing, and they could be huddled up in their house in fear at night, and I would never know it. And they could just be telling me that.
But nobody came forward after you did the TV show or anything. No,
nobody. There's a lot of woods behind the house out there, like real thick woods. But when I looked on Google Maps or Google Earth, it looks like at some point or another it hollows out or it opens up into like this field or something, a grass field, and there's a big pond back there. But I never went that far back. That's real far back there. That's like at least a mile or so. There is a horse stable like closer to the highway that's like directly behind my parents, but I didn't go that far back.
How far away is the river from your parents' house?
It's about 2 miles, so it's not too much further.
Yeah,
it's definitely like and there's like woodlands between there and their house, so it's not. It's like it's doable, like walking, especially I'm sure if you're like enormous like they they could probably get through it a lot faster. But I do think that's how they network through, is to follow the thick low-lying areas like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then just they go through where there's a lot of produce grown and stuff. And I guess if there's no produce, they can just always hit the horse barn up.
And you have these videos and everything posted on a YouTube channel?
Yeah, I need to post the more recent stuff that I have on there. I haven't really posted anything in a while, but I do need to.
What's the channel? Where can people find it?
It's Ronyx, RONYX 8, like the number 8.
Ronyx 8.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, I appreciate you sharing all this stuff with us, your story and everything, man. I've enjoyed it for sure.
Thank you. And hopefully I can get something, in the near future, something that will, might get me a Nobel Peace Prize or something. I don't know.
If you've had an encounter with something you can't explain, Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, whatever, send me an email at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. Check out the website, bigfootcrossroads.com, for links to the social media, a place where you can fill out a sighting report, and links to all the past episodes and the merchandise. And until next time, remember, there's something in the woods.